Long ago, there was a man named Samson. From birth, God had given him a special gift, unbelievable strength. He could fight lions with his bare hands and defeat armies with nothing but a jawbone. His strength came from God, and as part of his vow, he was never to cut his hair. But Samson had a weakness. He often let his heart guide him more than his wisdom. One day he fell in love with a woman named Delilah. The Philistines, enemies of Samson's people, saw this as their chance. They offered Delilah money if she could discover the secret of his strength. Delilah asked Samson again and again, "Tell me the secret of your great strength." At first Samson gave her false answers, but she kept pressing him day after day. Finally, worn down, Samson revealed the truth: "My strength comes from my hair. If it is cut, I will lose my power." That night while Samson slept, Delilah had his hair cut. When the Philistines attacked, Samson's strength was gone. They captured him, blinded him, and threw him into prison. Later, while chained in the Philistines' temple, Samson prayed, "Lord, give me strength once more." God answered, with a final act of power. Samson pushed against the pillars of the temple, and it collapsed, defeating more of his enemies in death than he had in life. Now imagine for a moment that you are someone who has been gifted by God with extraordinary abilities, the kind that makes people say, "That's impossible." Let's say you have the ability to heal the sick and even raise the dead. Imagine that everyone around you knows about your gift, including the devil. And let's say the devil comes to you and offers you a deal. He says, "If you don't use your gift for 1 year, all the power that comes with it will be mine." Would you accept the deal? Why or why not? What if the devil said the same thing to you, but instead of offering you all the powers you currently possess, he offered you powers beyond your wildest dreams? You would reject the offer, right? Why would you ever want to give up what you have now, especially if it means giving everything away? Right, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. Today, we're going to talk about something really important: avoiding temptation. Now, you might think you're not the type of person who falls for temptation, but trust me, we've all been there before. Remember that saying, "It's not me, it's the devil"? Well, the devil doesn't just target other people. He comes for all of us, especially those who serve the Lord. So let's take a closer look at how we can avoid temptation. Temptation comes in different forms, like when people try to change our beliefs or make us do things we shouldn't. Sometimes it can even come from the people closest to us. It is like a test to see if we'll stay strong in our faith or give in to what people say. This story of Samson and Delilah is a good example of how temptation can affect anyone, even someone as strong as Samson. God had given Samson a special gift, a huge amount of strength. This made him famous, and people wanted to know how he did it. Delilah was one of them. She kept asking Samson to tell her his secret. At first, he tricked her, but later he told her that his strength came from his hair and that if it was cut off, he would become weak. This was the secret that Samson should have kept, but because of temptation, he told it to Delilah. She used this information to trick Samson and make him lose his strength. Samson's story teaches us that no matter how strong we are in our faith, we should always be careful with temptation. It also shows us that even people we trust can sometimes hurt us. So it's important to remember that just like Samson, we should never give up on God, because even if we make mistakes, He will always forgive us and give us another chance. Let's get back to the story. Samson's story teaches us some important lessons about temptation. First, it shows us that temptation can come in different ways. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it can be hard to know if we should give in or not. Second, it reminds us that temptation can affect anyone, no matter how strong they are. Samson was a strong and brave man, but he couldn't resist the temptation to tell Delilah his secret. Third, it teaches us that temptation can have serious consequences. Samson lost his strength and became a prisoner because he gave in to temptation. So how can we avoid temptation like Samson did? Here are 3 things that can help us. First, we need to believe in God and pray for help. Second, we should think carefully about the consequences of our actions. And third, we must learn from our mistakes and try to do better next time. There are many stories in the Bible where people faced temptation and chose to believe in God. For example, when Jesus was in the desert for 40 days, he was tempted by the devil, but he resisted the temptation by believing in God and praying. Similarly, we can find strength in God when we face temptation. But how do we actually put this into practice? Well, here are 3 practical tips that can help us avoid temptation. Tip No. 1. Be aware of the temptations around you. Sometimes we fall for temptation because we don't pay attention. That's why it's important to be aware of the temptations around us. We need to understand that these temptations exist and be prepared to resist them. Just like how Samson was tempted by Delilah, we too can be tempted by the people around us. That's why it's important to be careful about the company we keep. Choose friends who will support you in your beliefs and help you resist temptation rather than those who might lead you astray. Tip No. 2. Resist the temptation. Once you realize that you're being tempted, it's important to resist it quickly. Don't give in to the temptation because it will only get stronger if you do. Instead, try to remove yourself from the situation. If that's not possible, then try to distract yourself with something else until the temptation passes. Remember, the longer you resist temptation, the easier it will become. Tip number 3. Ask for help. If you're struggling to resist temptation, don't be afraid to ask for help. Talk to someone you trust, like a family member, friend, or religious leader. They can offer support and guidance and help you stay focused on your goals. Remember, it's okay to ask for help when you need it. In fact, it's a sign of strength, not weakness. In conclusion, we can avoid temptation by believing in God, thinking about the consequences of our actions, and learning from our mistakes. Being aware of the temptations around us, resisting the temptation, and asking for help when needed. By following these tips and remembering the lessons from Samson's story, we can stay strong in our faith and avoid falling for temptation. Thank you for watching today's episode. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to share it with your loved ones. We hope you learned something valuable and will put it into practice in your life. If you have any thoughts or ideas, please share them in the comments below. Your feedback is very important to us and helps us improve our videos. Once again, thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until then, may God bless you and keep you strong in your faith.